Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me today for another conversation around the divine will. And we wanted to really have, I guess, a chat about the church's purification, its renewal, and its wonderful resurrection. And joining me to have this conversation is Kathy in Medjugorje, Kathy Hurst. Kathy, thank you for joining me today. I know this is a subject you are extremely passionate about, so we thought we'd have, again, just unpack some of the dates around church history and where we are today as a church.
Thank you, Carol, for inviting me again.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Now, we're living in the divine will right now, the era of the divine will, which means that the church is being resurrected. We're going into a new era of peace. Speak into that first of all.
Yeah, we're going towards Pentecost, Carol.
Yes.
And I really believe that Medjugorje is all about Our Lady came to resurrect or renew the faith with the help of the Pope, Pope John Paul II, from 1981. As soon as Pope John Paul II did the consecration of Russia that was asked for in Fatima, immediately Our Lady came to Medjugorje. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The consecration was done while the Pope was still lying sick in bed on the 7th of June. They did the consecration, and the 24th of June, immediately Our Lady came to, within 10 years, communism was gone from Yugoslavia. All Eastern European countries started moving away from communism. Mm-hmm. The spark was 1981.
Yeah.
Because of Our Lady and Pope John Paul II. And that was the start of our resurrection towards Pentecost.
Yeah. We're living in a time of grace, friends. We're living in a time of great grace. But Kathy, I just want to give you some of the timelines, and viewers, just some of the timelines that we're talking about here and where we're going with this. Okay, now obviously we're reflecting on the divine will as well and Luisa's writings. So just in 1878, Luisa has a vision of Jesus carrying his cross, and he says to Luisa, "Soul, help me." That was in 1878. In 1879, we had the Knock apparition, which is about the lamb being slain on the altar. That was in 1879. And then in 1886, the Pope at the time was given an image of demonic spirits congregating in Rome, and he composes the St. Michael prayer. In 1889, Luisa gets the gift of living in the divine will and the second spiritual marriage, which is like little newborn. She's a little newborn of the divine will. And then in 1917, we have Fatima. In 1933, the Vatican celebrates the Jubilee of the Redemption. And then in 1935, we have Saint Faustina, and she receives instructions from Jesus as how to pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet. So we see the timelines here happening. Kathy, speak into this for us.
Okay, so we see from all that, we're Irish, so it looks to me like Knock was the beginning of the lamb going to be slaughtered. And it was all about the church. So the first time, 2,000 years ago, it was about Jesus' body physically being on earth. Now the body of Christ is the church. So the church has been purified again, or has been crucified from the 1880s up to 1981, when the Archbishop at the time even said, "Our sweet Christ on earth," they attempted to assassinate him. So 1981 was almost like Jesus dying again when the Pope
was shot.
Was shot in May, 13th of May, 1981. Mm-hmm. But the Pope then tied all that into Fatima because the consecration hadn't been done. Yeah. So he immediately realized that that was the third secret of Fatima. Mm-hmm. And he did the consecration that was asked for. So Our Lady has been with the church in its purification, in its crucifixion, okay? Because she was with Jesus in the first crucifixion. She was with him all the time, and she stayed with him. She stayed with the apostles right up to Pentecost. So I think this is, Pope John Paul II was totus tuus, totally for Our Lady, so it's all about the Pope and Our Lady. It's all about the Church and Our Lady and the renewal of the faith. So Our Lady has always stayed trying to help the Church through her messages in Fatima, her apparitions, speaking to us about faith. But we had to go through that purification. But I believe that ended in 1981. And I believe that Medjugorje is all about moving now. It's all about resurrecting the faith and moving towards Pentecost. So 50 years in Medjugorje will be very significant.
Yes.
In Medjugorje, we bless the graves every year. The priests bless the graves for Pentecost. Now, my husband comes from a different parish, and the blessing of the graves, the date can change each year, but in Medjugorje, it never changes. It's always Pentecost Sunday. They bless the graves and they bless the fields. So it's the most important day in Medjugorje. It's a very important day. So it's significant, to this place.
Yes.
Now, also, I want to go back to 1933, because that's when the villagers placed the big cross on Cross Mountain, because Medjugorje is all about that big cross on Cross Mountain.
Yes.
So that was the celebration. It was the Jubilee of Redemption, 1,900 years since the death of Christ. And they marked it by putting that big cross on the mountain. And people who come to Medjugorje now do the way of the cross.
That's Mount Crucifix, right? Crucifix.
Yeah.
I got the name
So
right.
nobody can miss that big cross. We're celebrating that Jesus died on the cross to redeem us.
And that was where Father Slavko brought up this cross, right?
Father Slavko died on the top of Cross Mountain again, on a Friday at 3:00. So it's all tied in.
All tied in.
So obviously then 2,000 years is going to be very significant. 2033, 2,000 years from the death of Christ. And we're told in Divine Will that Jesus said God renews the world every 2,000 years. So by 2033, it's going to be renewed. It's we're moving towards Pentecost. Pentecost is going to be 2033. It's all going to be over by then. So this is the final 10 years. This is the final call. Now, the other thing about 1933 that you just read, Carol, was the Divine Mercy.
Yeah.
So the Divine Mercy is tied into, again, that Jubilee year, because St. Faustina makes a point of saying the first Mass on Divine Mercy Sunday was 1935, which was the end of the Jubilee. And she makes the point of saying, I'm so glad these two things are tied in together. So even she says that 1,900 years since the death of Christ is tied in with this great grace of Divine Mercy that's given to us through St. Faustina, Divine Mercy Sunday. What is Divine Mercy Sunday about, Carol? That we are offered the grace of returning to our baptismal state. If we want to go to Mass, confession, do whatever we need to do, that God is offering us this grace of taking away our sins in a complete way. Because, Carol, he's renewing the church, and we're in the last 10 years. So if people don't accept this mercy now, that's what I see is like the purification, the death of the church on one hand, and on the other side, we have Our Lady coming in her apparitions, giving us messages. We have divine mercy. We have divine will. Yes. So Luisa was born for these times as well, to give us this great, great gift of divine will, which we've had since the beginning of the death of the church, that I'm going to put it that way, the crucifixion of Jesus the second time, which is the crucifixion of the church. So God gives us all this love on one side to make up for the destruction on the other side, a means to make up for sin,
And Our Lady tells us that, the Lord has granted her this time to come to us, because this is a time of great grace. She continually tells us this.
So if the Divine Mercy Chaplet, if you do it once, you can gain the grace of conversion for something.
Yeah. So I guess, Kathy, you mentioned that we have until 2033.
I believe it's all over by 2033. So we're in the last 10 years now of accepting the mercy of God.
So
And
don't,
so Our Lady already tells us, don't wait until the sign comes in Medjugorje because you won't have time to convert. And we know that, Carol. It takes time to get to know God. You don't get to know him
does.
overnight.
No,
You've
it's
got
a
to pray,
journey.
you've got to get to know him. So it's like, don't wait any longer because the time is really running out now.
So I guess, Kathy, this is a conversation we're having. This is your point of view. This is what you're seeing. I will say that, friends. This is what Kathy is in her summation. So for the next 10 years, what do you think, Kathy, what is going to unfold within the next 10 years? What should we do? How should we prepare? Or what should we expect?
Carol, it's already unfolding, the purification.
Yeah.
People are getting purified. It's a time of chastisement now. It's already happening. But we know from reading Luisa's writings is we can move out of a time of chastisement if we listen. We can move into a time of peace in the morning if people pray and respond to what Our Lady is asking them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because in divine will, we're told that God seems to have decided on a certain number of acts, a certain number of prayers, a certain number of people who are going to respond.
Yeah.
And Our Lady is waiting. She keeps saying, I need your prayers.
Yeah.
She's waiting on the prayers. She's waiting on the sacrifice because she has to offer whatever that amount is to God.
Yeah.
It's like he's decided, okay, if so much of the population turn back and,
And
ask for mercy.
she said in her last message, may this be a time of prayer. So she needs our prayers. She needs us. So it's really, we really are truly, I keep saying this, I'm probably repeating myself a lot on these podcasts, but we really truly are living in most amazing times. You and I will probably witness this new birth of the church, please God, if God spares me and spares us all.
So, Carol, another point is that Padre Pio confirmed all this.
Yeah.
So he had no problems listening to Luisa, reading her Hours of the Passion. And he also confirmed that it would be in our lifetime. There's a video online where he said, he died in 1968. And he said, it won't be in our lifetime, but you see these children here, it will be in their lifetime. So that's our lifetime now. So I'm saying that Padre Pio confirmed all this as well. But he had no problem listening to Luisa and her writings and said she was an angel from heaven. If people read the writings, you couldn't say that it's not about resurrection. It's about resurrection, It's
100%, 100%. There's no doubt about that. Oh, it's phenomenal, completely. So I guess, what would you say to folk, I guess, moving forward?
I'd say to believe Our Lady's words, believe Saint Faustina's words.
Get with the program.
Believe what the church is telling you, Believe and do it.
Yeah.
Believe, have faith.
Yeah, have faith and be excited. Look forward.
And another thing recently was Father Sweat saying your faith has to be public. It can't be, it doesn't exist if it's unless it's
to witness.
And you stand for something, your faith doesn't exist.
Your witness is so important, friends. So I want to encourage you. I hope this podcast, the short podcast, inspired you that the church is being purified, but at the same time is being renewed, is being resurrected. And we are living in those times, friends. So I want to encourage you. If you don't know too much about the divine will, get to know it. For those of you living in it, I want to encourage you, continue to do it. Because, Kathy, the great thing about the divine will is that it allows us to repair for those who are not operating in faith. So this is the gift to us. It helps us to repair on behalf of others, right?
Exactly. And the Divine Mercy Chaplet is the same.
Yeah.
It's a universal prayer. You're praying for the salvation of everybody. So before there was little wars all around the world, but in the 20th century, it was world wars. We're talking about the whole world now.
Yeah.
And we're talking about universal prayer. So God is seeing us as a unit. And we can now, Jesus in us can pray for everybody now, past, present, and future. So this is the greatest grace that God could give us. But he's waiting on a certain amount of us to believe this, to live this way, and the kingdom will come. It could be here in the morning, Carol, if enough of us believed and lived.
If people would act on it, I would say act. The divine will is all about actions and your participation. The Lord needs you here for his will. Well, he doesn't need us, but we want his will to be accomplished on this earth. And the only way, the quickest way he can achieve that is through us, Kathy. Would you agree?
But he needs his church.
He
So
needs his church.
Luisa always says, what the church confirms on earth is confirmed in heaven. So we need the Pope, we need the priests to believe these words. We need the priests to live. Why would the priests not accept divine mercy when it's in the liturgy? But they still don't, Carol. They still don't organize events to offer these graces to people on Divine Mercy Sunday. And Divine Mercy is already approved. But what about divine will? So Jesus is waiting on the church, you know, to accept these divine will teachings, and they'll be accepted in heaven, and the kingdom will come, and peace will reign. But it's up to us. It's up to the priests. It's up to the Vatican. It's in our, you know, it's up to us. What we do down here, God confirms in heaven.
Yes. Well, look at friends, I want to encourage you, be encouraged, and we hope this podcast inspires you to, again, to participate in this gift that the Lord has given us. And Kathy, anything before we close?
Just so exciting. It's just so exciting if people simply believe their faith.
Yeah.
These are God's words. These are Jesus' words. There's no reason not to believe them.
Okay, friends, until next time. And thank you again, Kathy, for your inspiring conversation. As usual, you've got so much knowledge there. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Carol.